Welcome back. Ed Martin here on the Pro America Report, and it is great to talk to an old friend. I can say that a couple of years now, but Congressman Doug Collins. He's currently the U.S. representative for the 9th Congressional District in Georgia, and he has been a really great voice. The last, I'd say, 6 months, he's come into his own, especially when it came to some of the machinations in the House Judiciary Committee, where he's now the ranking member, whether it was Flynn or some of the other stuff. So welcome, Congressman Collins. How are you, sir?
Oh, glad to be here. We're doing well today.
Good. So, hey, listen, first let me ask you about Flynn. You know, we're all sort of waiting on the Flynn case in terms of his actual legal, kind of jeopardy, and when that clears out, which everybody's optimistic. But what give us your thumbnail on that, and maybe is there any likelihood that Congress is going to investigate what happened, get to the bottom of all that, or are we stuck with a House that's dominated by Pelosi hands, and we're kind of got our hands tied?
Well, Nadler wasn't investigated for anything, because if he does investigate it, it blows up his whole theory of everything that he believes is wrong with the president. And the media has been willing accomplices in that. Hopefully, Lindsey Graham, who said he will start those hearings, and we'll start getting to the bottom of it. But really what the Flynn case actually does is it shows that for those of us who have been saying that there were problems all along, we're justified in that. I mean, because now we're seeing that there really, was this conspiracy of the corrupt cabal of Comey and Strzok and Page and McCabe and others who were out to get this president. They were out to get him as a candidate, and then they were out to get it to disrupt the first part of his administration. And we're starting to see how the corruption at the FBI filtered into the intelligence community and all the way to, frankly, to the Oval Office with the unmasking. And so we see President Obama, we see his chief of staff the day of the meeting unmasking Flynn conversation. We see him asking Comey and Sally Yates about it, and we see at that point Sally Yates even being surprised at how much the president knew about General Flynn. So I think when you look at it, it just goes to show that there's vindication for those of us who believe, and we're showing that there were problems there, but nobody wanted to believe it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I guess one of the things I tell people is in the next Congress, if you have the right leadership, I think you get to the bottom of some of this too. But let me slide over to something. I watched you on the news. I think over the weekend I saw you, and I thought it was very powerful on TV. On Fox News Channel, talking about China and holding China accountable for what they've done. Look, here's where I want to ask you. I want to put the point on this is. You've been pretty fearless in Congress. You don't seem to, you're not, I don't know, you don't need to be defined by how well you always get along. I think people like you, but you're willing to stick your head in and hit hard when you have to. On the China question, the Wall Street Journal had another piece today. Maybe we don't want a second Cold War. It would be really expensive for us. And a lot of Republicans say they hate China, what they're doing to us, and then they back off. Walk us through what we can do, and if the Republican Party now has the stomach for it.
Well, they need to have the stomach for it, because going back to the president from his first days in office, one of the things he's always said, whether it be trade negotiations or anything else, China we want is a valuable partner, but they cannot do it on their terms. And this is where I have a disagreement with Wall Street and others that are heavily invested and maybe in Chinese interest in companies and other things. But the question is what is the price that we're paying for that? And this virus, a bill we put forward along with Senator Graham and others, is a bill that gives the president the toolbox to actually go straight at the Communist Party leadership, and that if they're not open to a international investigation on how the virus started, what the consequences were, what actually happened, if they're not willing to let the FDA, the pharmaceuticals coming from there live up to the same standards and protocols as ours, if they're not willing to let go of the Hong Kong prisoners who they are now using the pandemic to keep in Hong Kong and around, then we're able to start saying that to these top leaders, the president can say, then we're going to freeze your assets, we're going to freeze your travel, we're going to suspend student visas and other things, we're going to suspend the ability to list on the stock exchanges and others. And it's just simply saying, China, if you want to be a first world economy, that's great, but you can't have a third world infrastructure with your own people, and lying to the world is not going to be tolerated. Well,
and I agree with you. And Do you see growing support amongst your colleagues? And I know you now have you're also running for the U.S. Senate. You have a sort of sense of the Senate, maybe even over in the Senate, they get less ready to stand up sometimes. Is there growing Republican backbone on it, do you think? Is it changing because of what we've seen?
It does. I believe it is. I believe it's actually changing among Democrats as well, because you're seeing, the fact that we come into a pandemic in which we found ourselves, frankly, having to deal with China where it started, and we realized that our supply chains for PPE, our supply chains for some of our pharmaceuticals and other things were controlled in China. And when you go about that, then that's just a problem. And I think for the first time, this idea that the media made fun of the president putting America first and putting our supply chains and our manufacturing, they're now actually seeing the real result of that. And sometimes hard times make you take honest assessments of where you are, and I see this being one of those times.
I would be remiss if I didn't get you on. We're talking with Doug Collins, Congressman Collins from Georgia. Georgia's reopening before we got hit with the rioting, but both the reopening and then Atlanta, and how are things in Georgia? Walk us through. I haven't seen Atlanta be as hot a spot in terms of the rioting and things, but how are you seeing what's developing?
Yeah, well, twofold. One, the riots. What happened in Minneapolis was murder, and I'm glad to see the officer charged. I think there probably needs to be more charged in that. It brings to light a lot of discussions of police and racism in our country that needs to be addressed. But the thugs and the Antifa and the anarchists who have invaded the protests that should be going on have to be stopped. I would agree with the president 100% that we need to do a forceful can protest, but they have to do it within the bounds of not looting and just using it as an excuse to steal. But Georgia has been good. I think the governor and the mayor of Atlanta have put it very clearly on, and they've used force to make sure that happens. The other thing, though, that for Georgia opening back up has been really good in the sense that we have a state that is back open. It is still moving forward. In fact, today was one of the last days we were opening up movie theaters. Bars and restaurants are coming back online as well. And we're seeing our positives are going up. But let me caution you, the positives are going up simply because there's more testing. But these are asymptomatic. We're not seeing our hospitalizations. People are moving through this. So we're leading the country and getting open back up. And now that we're seeing that, we'll see how that progresses throughout the summer and then be prepared for the fall.
Well, let me get one more thing. We're talking with Congressman Collins and Ranking Member Judiciary. You've been a hero on that, and we appreciate it, Doug, for that. But so tell us what's your race now in terms of the Senate race you're in. When is the next primary vote? What's the schedule?
Well, because the governor decided to move a special election to November, our actual race will not be until November, and then we'll have a runoff after that. We're feeling real good. Republicans, we're responding. We're up a good bit among Republican voters. People trust us. They know what we've done. We're the only Republican who is showing consistently beating the Democrats who are running in this race. We have a positive, favorable rating among the voters in Georgia. They know what we've done. So we feel good about the race. We're going to continue going forward and looking forward to a good outcome. Polls have been good to us, but we're not going to stop. We're going to continue to keep this race going because I am, running against an appointed senator who, is, money is no object, and but buying an election in Georgia is not going to happen, and we're going to make sure that doesn't.
All right. Well, keep us informed, Congressman Doug Collins. Appreciate it very much, and appreciate your stand. Especially, what got me wanting to talk to you was your stand on China, stand up to China. I know there's a lot of other things that seem to swamp in around us, but appreciate it very much, Congressman Doug Collins, 9th Congressional District of Georgia, and also the ranking member of Judiciary Committee, and running for the U.S. Senate down there too. He's got a lot of hats he's wearing and doing a great job. Thank you for your time, sir.
Appreciate it, y'all. Take care. Thanks a lot.
All right. Okay, we will. And we will take a quick break. When we come back, don't forget, by the way, you can get any of these standalone segments, whether you're hearing with me and Congressman Collins over, if you go to proamericareport.com, proamericareport.com, we post them all up there. And as I mentioned earlier, they even do them as this audiograph where you can get them it's a video, and it's closed caption, so you can read it if you want to read it while you don't want to get caught while you're watching something. If you're doing something else, it's good fun. Anyway, we'll take a quick break and be right back. It's Ed Martin here on a Pro America Report. Be right back.